The man whom Trump reviled is running for office in Harlem. Karma, he says. And you write in part, quote, Yusef Salaam, one of 5 Black and Latino teenagers wrongfully convicted and part of a 1989 rape in Central Park, is finally where he seems to belong, on the campaign trail. This is the man whose arrest prompted Donald Trump to publicly call for the death penalty in 1989 when Mr. Salaam was just 15 and charged with 4 other teenagers with a horrific crime that they did not commit. Mr. Trump took out full-page ads in 4 New York newspapers, including the New York Times, calling for the restoration of the state death penalty over the case in 2002. The young men were exonerated after serving years in prison. Mr. Trump has refused to apologize. Now that notoriety has provided Mr. Salaam, 49, with a platform on which to run for office, and in a twist of fate straight out of the tabloids, it's Mr. Trump, who has now been indicted on criminal charges while Mr. Salaam runs for office. It was karma, he said, of Mr. Trump's legal situation while sitting inside the Sugar Hill Cafe in Harlem. I hope he's able to do time, he said, with a hint of mischief in his eyes. When Mr. Trump was indicted recently, Mr. Salaam expressed a kind of trust in the justice system that few might expect. I do not resort to hatred, bias, or racism, as you once did, Mr. Salaam wrote in a message to the former president. I am putting my faith in the judicial system to seek out the truth. Mr. Salaam is still waiting for justice, and so is the country. And Mara, let's talk more about this, but also point out that Donald Trump is also accused of rape. Just to add a little.
It runs so deep. You know, it's an extraordinary story. It's an extraordinary tabloid story, New York story, now an American story. But I was really moved watching Mr. Salaam on the campaign trail. There's a magic to watching him. It's clearly something that you feel he's really where he's meant to be. He was kind of born to do it. Watching him retail politicking, he loves people. There's a sadness about this because, of course, so much. I mean, his childhood was taken from him wrongfully. And I think one of the reasons I wanted to spend some time with him over the past few days is that there is a tendency, I think, to trivialize some of Donald Trump's conduct, whether they be crimes he was accused of here in New York or elsewhere, or simply harm that he has done to others over the years. This goes back a long way. And I think when you look at the case of someone like Yusef Salaam and the other teenagers who were wrongfully convicted, and Donald Trump's role in that, which really was to nationalize this case and turn them into pariahs, these children. You have to kind of remember everybody deserves an equal shot in the justice system, no matter what you're accused of. And Donald Trump was part of a campaign to rob these children of that. And I think just to kind of come full circle and just remember that actually Donald Trump's conduct is serious and that he should be treated just like any other defendant would. And I think that's what I heard from Harlemites, from voters on the street. They said to me, you know, we don't want to throw the book at him any more than anyone would throw the book at us.
Yeah, and Rev, you know, to her point about, we were just talking earlier about Stormy Daniels, like, and again, Republicans glossing over that and going straight to, they're trivializing a lot of different things that are very important. And again, it's the fire hose of falsehoods as well as trivializing indecent behavior that is part of sort of the Trump legacy on this country.
And really trivializing bigoted behavior.
Yes.
One of the things that I would note, because Nash Action Network was one of the few groups, along with other few groups that stood up for these boys, we were castigated. And Donald Trump bought these 4 ads. You must remember that Donald Trump never took a position on a case in New York. We had Howard Beecher race case, we had Benson, never opened his mouth. This was the first time he took a position on a case. So it was really biased. It was really something that really was making popular hang these guys. And it was done before they even had a trial. And the irony of Yusef and Corey Weiss, who's a member of NAM, to watch him go in the same building they had to go in to be arraigned, and have the graciousness and to take the high road. I was so proud of them and glad we stood up for them, but proud of them. They didn't give him the bitterness And you can talk to this, that they didn't give him the bitterness or the rancor that he gave them, and he had attacked them, and they wouldn't attack him.
Their dignity shows just how small
Exactly.
Donald Trump really is.
Exactly.
What stood out to me was that line in the piece where Yusef Salaam says, "I put my faith in the justice system," a justice system that took away his childhood, a justice system that cost him so much. He's saying, I trust this system.
Yeah.
If Donald Trump is guilty, to find him guilty. If he's innocent, to let him walk away from it. That's a pretty extraordinary statement, particularly from him.
Remarkable. Truly remarkable.